Welcome to this lecture on Adobe Illustrator by Eduonix Technologies. In this lecture, I'm going to be showing you how to make a cool background. This is pretty much just a demo lecture, and I'm not just going to be showing you one or the other. And you can get a fire image right now as you're listening to me, or any kind of basically background image that shows a waviness, a texture. This is how to make something that looks good. Not necessarily something specific, but one thing that is important is that depending on what you're featuring with your background, all the images that go into it, particularly the background in this case, should help the content out. In this case, this is for a client of mine. There's a map like right here and some type, and it really helps bring that out and fades the edges. And since it's going to be so big, and since it's a map, the darkness in the edges does the curvature. But for whatever you want this time, unless you have a project you'd like to do or a background you think you want to use for something. But anyway, this is just about good techniques in making them. So in Illustrator, which it keeps you from having to rely on Photoshop, which can save you a lot of time anyway. But so get your fire images and set them up like this. Or just stretch it to bleed a little over the canvas. It's good to have this bleed no matter if it's print or not. You'll understand why later. And you can start cutting it up into quadrants, really. And that's what I'm not doing that because I only needed one little quadrant, but you should cut it up into quadrants. And I'll do it for the tutorial. So the first thing you're going to want to do is cut it up into slices. And like I said, I already did that. I have 4 quadrants. I'm going to use these in particular to balance it out. Your texture is not always going to be balanced because the best textures are natural pictures, not ones that people have created, although those sometimes are good. But you want to use a natural texture, and this is real fire. Somebody just blended it together, that's all. They didn't. It's not a fire-themed texture. So things like this. Now I'm putting this in the upper right because I want it to be dark on all the sides. So it's really going to help frame my content. So that's how you use grids, and I'm not going to show you any more than that, but play with it. Really, for backgrounds, I'm going to show you another technique later that uses grids. But anyway, I have a better way of doing this and a different way of showing you. So because I want to get this darker for these sides, I actually want to get it as light as these. So let me just make sure. Yes, I want to make it as light as these. So what I'm going to do is just create a little mask here. Simple gradient mesh will work, although there's a lot of different things you can do. In fact, so back to the background. I'm going to lighten this up by creating a square, holding in shift, and right where I need the light to be, I'm going to make the corners in the bottom left and upper right. You'll see why in a second. Then since my constraint angle is 45, I'm going to start with a line, holding in Alt to go out from all sides, and put it right on top of this square. Should perfectly bisect it diagonally. So now I have 2 squares. I'm going to color them gradient. You can hit escape to get out of anything, by the way. Really saves time. Well, it's not as helpful anymore. I swear it used to work really well, but for any process that's like running, if you hit escape, it'll get rid of it. So basically, I need to change my gradient first of all. This needs to be white, so I'm going to alt drag this gradient slider over. And I'm going to make this 0. I'm going to ungroup these, yeah. So I'm sliding the little slider right here, which you can also do in the gradient panel. I'm sliding it really near because of the particular shape I want. And this one's not the exact shape I want, so I'm going to stretch it. So right now, I can change the transparency to 40%, or I can screen, or luminosity. These are all things that work with white overlays. Soft light and hard light are often really nice because they don't make such a dramatic change. Watch when I delete these. See, it's darker. This brings out the oranges. It just looks a little bit more natural. This one needs it a little bit more. And you know, when in doubt, copy the shape that you're, when you can't, when 100% is not enough, you can always copy it and paste it in front. So, without making it look too weird, I think I evened it out pretty well. I could bend this, but I'm not, just for the tutorial's sake. So, that's pretty cool. That's fire. Now, what's so special about fire, or any it's hard to describe the pattern I'm talking about. It's not a picture of fire. It's fire worked into a texture, but it's real fire. So for anything else, like if you wanted a background of ice, or you wanted to use that, well then it's a picture of ice, but not an ice cube, or not ice forming on something, but it's an even, kind of well distributed as far as lights and darks, and just texturized, but it's real ice. It's the most ideal things you can get. Anyway, Control 2 to lock those, because I'm not going to need to edit them anymore, those little triangles. I've evened it out. So if I go up to Object, Edit Colors, you can usually edit the colors of a raster image in Illustrator. Sometimes it's better to vectorize it, but I'm not going to do that. So I won't mess around with the black too much, obviously. But say I want this to be like a cloudy, wispy white color. So you can do this. You can change the colors of rasterized images in Illustrator, which is great. But since I have this already set up, the only thing that this is, you've already learned how to make. When just look in the video that has warp tools, I believe that is in the first 10 or so. It has envelope distort. It's covered in effects, and it's covered in a few others. But anyway, I have them grouped into just small little sets like that. So I grouped them all back together again. Object, envelope distort, make with warp. So basically I just used inflate, which would normally make it bigger, but when I slid this down, it made it smaller. So it's pretty unlimited what you can do here. And for particularly with the combinations of transparency modes and just two pictures. Of course, when you apply more, it gets really crazy. Just a purple layer with a normal opacity can give it a whole purple tint. But if I were to change that to hard light and put it in front of everything, and you have to make sure you have it selected. It does so basically, just with combining two images, you can get a myriad of different effects. This one is just the fire, which when you overlay that with luminosity, looks like it, it creates this kind of wispy cloud effect. However, if I were to go screen, for example, you lose pretty much all of the wispiness except for a little bit, and it has this kind of faded pink effect. If I go to something like hard light, it turns back into fire, you know. If I go to difference, you know, it does all sorts of things. And of course you would want to rasterize everything, the corners that we made and the image that you're using. But I didn't need that because what I need is essentially for it to just be luminosity. So that's basically it in terms of creating a background or any kind of complex image comp. You just you can do pretty much what you can do in Photoshop, just using transparency, blending effects, and everything else. So thanks for watching, and make a few of your own.